Welcome to the Nerd Party.
Welcome to the House of Miyazaki, the latest entry into the Houselights series here on the Nerd Party Network. This week, we are continuing our series of the directed works of Hayao Miyazaki in the 1980s with 1989's Kiki's Delivery Service. I'm Darren Moser, and I'm joined again with my friends dirigible pilot Tristan Riddell and resident witch in training John Mills. Gentlemen, it's time to ship out some homemade pies with Kiki's Delivery Service.
I'm offended because I've always wanted to be a dirigible captain.
Okay,
and
fine.
Now I've been robbed again.
Fine. You could be the dirigible captain. Tristan can be the resident witch in training.
Okay,
I'm fine
that's
with
fair
that.
enough.
Yeah,
Okay, that's good.
Yeah.
That works. I mean, I think we all know that if I were captain of a dirigible, it would go exactly the way it does in this movie. So,
I mean, it was going so well until that last act, and then
it was that gust of wind was terrible.
Yeah, is that the unwritten character, the gust of wind? It has a major effect on the plot in several points.
It moves the story more than music in a James Gunn
Was
movie.
Frank
Yes.
Welker the gust of wind? Because I kind of feel like if the gust of wind had to have a voice, it'd be Frank Welker.
Most likely. I'd say that's a good guess.
All right. Well, let's dive into this. So this is the end of our Miyazaki phase. He did 4 movies in the 80s, and this one in 89 was only 1 year later than My Neighbor Totoro. So, John, first off, with your first impression, did you watch it with your kids?
No, I did not have the opportunity
So,
to
Tristan,
watch it with my kids.
first, no, I'm kidding, John. No.
Scheduling just didn't work out.
No,
Power
it's totally
Rangers
fine.
captured the 6-year-old's heart more than this. But no, you know, my
Did it
first
capture
viewing-
your heart, though? No.
You know, it's really interesting simply because thinking of it in terms of 1989. This came out in 1989, and it's one of those things where we're finally at a year where I remember all of the movies that I saw that year. And that's the year of Batman and Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. And I think this is one of those things where if you held this up, which has so much esteem, and you're like, this came out in 1989, and then you hold up those two as came out in 1989, you can really see that the cultural divide is pretty steep on these two. And it's so wild to look at it from that perspective. But it was, I mean, it was, like it declares itself right off, from the get-go of how imaginative and, alternative reality this is going to be. And it just jumps in. I mean, in a lot of ways, there's, I think all 4 of these movies have sort of just jumped right into it. But I think this is much more like Totoro, where when we come in, this is just picking up. Life has been going on before these credits rolled, sort of thing. There's much more of a feeling of there was life, and we just happened to slide into this point.
Right. This one, we have the inciting incident of, oh, it's a full moon tonight, and it's going to be clear. And thus, as a witch, we're introduced very clearly and quickly to what is going on. And then the adventure starts.
Yeah.
Well, and again, looking at those kind of universal themes of going away from home for the first time, being on your own and loneliness and finding new friends and being in a new town. Tristan, how did you feel with this film kind of being your first watch through?
Well, I thought this was I love the cinematic literary penchant for taking a kid and then training them in something spectacular. Like if you look at Dune, Harry Potter, Star Wars, it's just like I love the idea of wizardry, Jedi, Kwisatz Haderach, that's not too general there, but I love that idea. I really do. Because, like when you're a kid, that's what you really focus on. Like you that's what a big portion of your imagination is resolves around, is that like no matter if you're in a good situation at home or a bad situation at home, you think about like, oh man, I bet I'm special, and not just in the special way that my mom says I'm special, but in a way where like I can move stuff with my mind, like that kind of special, where I could fly on a broom, and all it takes is my Hagrid to come find me and tell me that I'm special and give me the invitation. So I really like that we get right into that with Kiki's delivery service. I really like it. Just boom, it's a full moon. I'm going to leave you guys for a year, and neither of you are going to be broken up about it or have any kind of reservations.
I mean, they were a little worried, but it didn't go above mild worriedness.
Yeah. I was a little surprised by that.
Well, I think, and this could be, I have absolutely no idea. I don't know whether this is a cultural thing or just a Miyazaki imprint sort of thing, where it's the idea of treating children as more mature by a certain age. Maybe that's an old school way of thinking, because I know that my parents, it was, and their parents before them, hey, I was ready to leave the house by X age, and look at you, you're 18 and you're just starting out sort of thing. And so I think that Miyazaki's works that we've watched up to this point, and these are the only 4 that I'm familiar with, but my read of it is this is completely within his worldview, his understanding of the world, that you don't go until you're 18 or 20 years old. All of his characters are a little bit younger.
That's
and
true.
It's this feeling of, well, you've hit, for all intents and purposes, a mature enough age. You got to go out and you got to, solve your own situation and handle your own problems. So the parents not being too concerned, when I was watching it, it really struck me. I think just like you, Tristan, where it's, wow, 13. Oh, okay. And it's going off on your own, flying off to another city where you're going to find your way all by yourself. And I'll write when I can. Like, that's such a weird headspace to be in.
That's true. And even with that connected to an age, I mean, I felt a little misty at the very beginning, not so much because of the age of her leaving, but the dad, like, his little moment with his daughter, and he's like, oh, when did you get so big? And fly me again, daddy. I'm like, oh, mine's gonna be a little bigger soon. And I was just like, that kind of struck me a little bit, regardless of the cultural divide of the age.
That moment in particular, I'm totally with you there, Darren, because I watched this with my kid. This was the first one that I watched with my kid. And I have a 4-year-old daughter. Well, I have 2 kids, but I watched it with my 4-year-old daughter. And that was definitely that moment where I had my arm around her while we were watching, and I held her a little bit tighter. Like when he said, like when he lifted her up and said, like, when did you get so big? So I totally get what you're saying.
Yeah, no, so it starts off on this adventure. She, again, it's a kind of slice of life with a little bit of magic sprinkled in. I mean, there's potions and flying. That's pretty much it with the magic.
Yeah, I was really surprised by that too. Like, there was no conjuring, there was no telekinesis or like anything like that.
But there's a talking cat, and she encounters somebody who basically says telling the future is her gift. So I like the fact that
it's like parlor magic almost, just really basic.
He establishes right off the bat, just with that one conversation, that witches aren't, they aren't of a mold. They're just, they each have their own specialties. And, her mom can do potions and she can fly, and this other witch can fly, but she can also tell the future. And so I like that. I like the fact that there's this sort of subconscious limiting principle, that being a witch doesn't mean you're going to become all powerful. And it establishes, I think, in a very nuanced way from the get-go, that you're not going to see a big wizard battle or people throwing lightning bolts at each other. Like, this is not that type of story, and I appreciate
the witches gang flies in with their 3 broomsticks, and they're like, this is our turf, and she like bullies Kiki off.
Right.
Well, and it does seem like everybody can fly, because like the mom obviously had her own broom, so that's like,
right.
I took it as like that's the base level stat, and then you had like your skill, and Kiki's like, I don't have a skill yet, so I'm just going to rely on the base level of flying.
Did we ever? We never discovered her skill, right?
I think she just doubles downs on flying, and it becomes really good at it.
That's what I felt too.
That's how I felt.
she's so good at it that she can make a simple janitor's broom fly as well as a traditional witch's broom. So maybe that's the doubling down part.
I thought the push broom was awesome. Was better than her original broom because she had places for her feet on the bottom, like when she was going super fast, like she had stirrups essentially.
Right,
that's true.
Right.
That's true.
Right.
Well, let's go into the characters, and obviously we'll be talking about the voice actors in the English dub. So Kirsten Dunst as the lead as Kiki. Did you ever not hear Spider-Man swinging in the background, or were you able to differentiate between her other roles and this one? Because she's not really doing anything with the voice. It's just Kirsten.
I disagree on that one.
Okay. You think you younged it up a little bit?
I think she younged it up just enough. Like there were times when it would kick in. There's other times when I didn't hear it because she went up an octave or two.
This is where I would have offered some notes maybe if I was in the booth, because and it's not just specifically her, but the dub in this case really played a lot like those ones I made reference to in a previous show, where I was saying to myself, okay, there's something about this performance that isn't quite matching what I think the spirit of this scene is. Like it's a little bit too big at moments. And I'm used to that with anime.
The laughing, the scene at the house where she delivered the bird cage and the dog was playing with the cat. They were losing their friggin' minds that the dog was playing with a stuffed animal. Like it was like
the dinner party. Yeah.
The dinner party. It was like George Carlin was performing there. It was insane.
They're like, what happened today, hon? Well, the dog got a toy. Oh my gosh. Like, write the paper.
Right. And the thing is, that's where these dubs sometimes can enter into that UHF Jackie Chan movie of the 80s sort of thing, where you're a kid on a rainy day and it's like, oh, look, that's obviously not what they're saying. And so I think a lot of the vocal performances were way too over the top for what they were supposed to be. And I would be very interested to go back and watch the original with subtitles just to hear the vocal inflection differences, because I'm convinced that they exist. I could be completely wrong. I don't know. But I do want to go out. The only voice that I really think was great, but that's because I think the guy is just an absolute vocal legend, God rest his soul, is Phil Hartman. As soon as I heard his voice, I was thrilled. I was like, oh, I get to hear Phil Hartman for this. This is
for
wonderful.
A lot of this. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, it almost makes me wonder, did they do Phil's part first? Because if he's ad-libbing a bunch of pieces, how are they inserting that in with Kristen Dunst's lines? Or is she doing her part second? Makes me wonder how they edit it. Although I guess he would just be doing a improv, but within the dub time frame. So she's going to respond to it. I don't know.
Well, probably his lines could be, he had room to have his lines be a little bit more outlandish in terms of any responses or anything like that. So again, it's another reason I would want to go see the original with subtitles, is to say, what was the cat actually supposed to be saying in these scenes? Because I would
there's less mouth movement to match. It's just open and shut,
Right, but there's also this sense of, okay, well, you let him ad-lib, you let him be a little freer with the script. Well, that's undoubtedly going to affect the tone of the scenes and the way I feel about certain emotional beats throughout the movie. And so, that's also one of those things where I think that the boy's name is the boy's name Tombo? Is that
Tombo?
Is that
yes.
Tombo? That was a character I don't think that in any dub I'm really going to plug into. Like, it was just really weird sort of character going on there. But keeping with, and I want to kick this back to you guys. Like, with these movies all having female central characters, it seems that we've evolved in a certain direction where the less fantastical the surroundings, the more buffoonish or simple the dads or the boy characters can be. And I'm not saying that in like a dig sort of way, but it's interesting because in Nausicaa, all of the characters seemed very strong and very,
Yeah.
they were very rooted in their own identity. Whereas the dad characters get a little bit more stock with these last two, and the husband in the bakery is more oafish than in the previous stuff.
Yeah, the husband, what did you guys think of him? Because honestly, the first time I saw this movie, I did not realize that was the husband until she says, "Honey, the baby's coming." And I'm
exactly
that's
the same
the
with me.
husband? Because he
Right?
never talks. And he's just like,
Never shows any concern for her or even any
his face
interaction.
Is like, I can't place the age. And I'm like, is he just like the stock boy? It's like, what is going on? And then all of a sudden it's like, that's the husband. I'm like, oh, okay. Yeah. So it's the same for you, Tristan. When did you realize that was the husband, John?
Well, not until she said, "Honey, I think the baby's coming." Like that's not until that was the first time for me too. And and also same with the way that they shaped her. What's her name?
Osono.
Oh man, Osono. Thank you. The way that they shaped her, I did not know she was pregnant until she said, "I'm expecting a baby." I was like, "Oh, I thought she was just large. I just thought she was a larger woman." And like it was, they did not draw her in a way that is typically drawn for pregnant women in animation. So for me, that was, and also it was really nice to hear Tress MacNeille again.
Well, she's been in all four of these films. She was Miss Hera in Totoro. She was Obaba, aging it up in Nausicaa, and she was Okami, which I think I'd have to look up who that was, but I'm pretty sure it's the mom that she gets the mom roles. She's got it down. So you got airships and you got a reoccurring character, guys. We're on theme so far.
Very much. Very much.
I started laughing hysterically when I first pressed play on the movie, and then the radio was playing in the background, and one of the first words out of his mouth was airship.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, the new local airship is coming in. I'm like, oh, Tristan's going to be so happy. I mean, it's just a plain dirigible, but it's an airship. It's not quite as fantastical.
Well, what I thought was really interesting, just getting back to the airships, but also the design of everything, and in an
Germanic kind of European.
Well, Miyazaki said in an interview about it, where he said what he had a lot of fun with was he created this sort of fantastical thing that was a mishmash. He took elements of Paris and elements of an Italian city and elements of this city and that city, and he
Lisbon,
said, it's a fun city,
right? But he said he was imagining a Japan where the war never happened. So it was a global city with an identity like the European nations, where there's some sort of, exchange of architecture styles, back and forth and stuff like that. And he said that he counted on European viewers to be able to tell when it was like, oh, that's from Italy, or that's from France, or that's from this. But he said that the native Japanese audiences just thought it was just your generic European town.
Right.
He's like, so I fooled everybody. And he's like, I like that I managed to fool everyone. They thought this was the way a city actually looks, where he's like, it's really a mishmash.
But it wasn't a mismatch.
Yeah.
Yeah. Got clock towers. I mean, that scene where she's flying over the ocean for the first time into the city, like I could smell the sea spray and stuff like that. Like it was just, you're on the journey. We're like, okay, here we go. We're buckled in. We're going into town, and if we can look past but you're 13 years old, you're not a child, but you kind of are. But yeah, this, a few other characters to keep rounding out those. Did you guys know we had Debbie Reynolds in this?
No, that Madame. I did not know.
Madame was Debbie Reynolds.
She's Madame?
Yeah.
No kidding.
She was Madame, and then we had Eddie McClurg.
Oh, Edie McClurg.
Edie McClurg, sorry.
Yeah.
As Barsa, who I had just watched Planes, Trains, and Automobiles as my normal Thanksgiving mantra, and I was like, I recognize the tin of that voice, and so that was fun to see her back in another role. But I love Madame. Just she's so soft spoken and kind, and her niece is a little something, but
Yeah, well,
yeah.
it's.
I thought it was interesting how deflated Kiki got from the niece.
Yeah.
I thought that was a bit of an overreaction, or am I misunderstanding the character?
I think you're right. And I think this might be another thing where the translation didn't convey to us exactly what was going on, because the way I read the scene as it is the way that the words are, is the niece was unappreciative and it just completely deflated Kiki. Whereas I have a feeling that the actual original scripted words were probably a little more biting toward Kiki, a little bit more, a rich person talking down to a delivery person sort of thing. That would make sense to deflate Kiki in that moment.
Well, and she's also attached to the situation. She's not just a delivery girl at that moment. She helped bake it and kind of, grew attached to her grandmother. So you put in all that effort, you're missing your date, and you're flying through the rain to get basically the door slammed in your face.
But I would issue this challenge to either of you two or anybody listening to make a herring and pumpkin pie.
Okay, that did not sound very good.
But I want to see how well received that would be by anybody on the face of the planet. Like I show up at your door with a herring and pumpkin pie. Like, I can tell you, if Tristan showed up with that pie at my door, I would slam it in his face. I'm like, come back when you're being serious. I'm done. No.
Okay, good point. Good point on the pie.
Yeah, that was just an odd. I've never heard that combination. You're talking to a guy who eats peanut butter and mayonnaise sandwiches, and I hear herring and pumpkin, and I'm like, oh, what is that about? So you like to revile me you sort of like climbed the Mount Everest of disgusting food, so far as I'm concerned.
Well, it was interesting because you also have, I like how she's going to pick it up, and it's like, oh, the blue roof. And I'm like, that's right. You'd have to tell everyone what color your roof is to, like, when you're flying places. But the other, it just, I think that touches on the next point, which is a reoccurring theme of this movie is the old way of doing things versus the new way of doing things. We get that thread coming up a lot. We have baking your food in a wood oven versus using a conventional oven. The conventional oven, it broke and it wasn't as reliable, and we have, her using her mom's old broom that's tried and true, or making a new one because she wants to do her own. You have greetings, like she shows up and she's very formal of her small town versus more modern, where you just start chatting with everybody. And so you have this it going round and round on the old way versus the new way. So what did you guys think of? Did you pick up on that kind of a theme? It was fairly subtle, but it was there.
No, that was lost on me. I can honestly say that the old versus new never once dabbled in my brain. So I'm having a hard time commenting on it. But I think one thing to maybe pivot off of that a little bit is I didn't realize, I kept trying to figure out when this was set. And I kept looking at the technology of the time, the cars of the time.
Like
I tried to...
a normal phone,
Yeah. It was just like, okay, well, they have TVs, so it's after the 50s. Or it's at least post 1950. But some of these cars are much older, but that's not a surprise and everything like that. And I was starting to look at the oven that Madam had, and I was like, okay, well, that's not a microwave,
right?
So it's pre 70s. So I'm like, okay, it's like 50s or 60s,
yeah.
And then it wasn't until I read later that Miyazaki said that it was the 50s, and it was like John was talking about a world where World War I and II never happened. And I thought that was really fascinating, and so that was pretty much the blending of the old and the new. Like, if you look at the architecture, the cars, the technology, and everything like that, I definitely saw that, but I didn't really see it as a theme.
I did see the theme in the idea that Kiki is showing up and she's on this broom and she's a delivery service, but she's immediately anachronistic with everything that's going on. What is the point of a delivery service that uses a broom when you have a car, or you have a dirigible, or you have airplanes and stuff like that? So she's already out of time. What I saw it more as, though, at the very beginning of it, was that she's the country girl in the city. There's
Yes.
that typical sort of, she's not doing it the way they do it, quote unquote, in the city. And that's always going to be more old fashioned versus more modern, because they're two different types of living. And I think that even her working for a baker and living in the spare room above, and the design of
It's kind of like the outskirts. Like, it's not the deep
Right.
city. It's the bridge
Right.
between the two.
Yeah, there's more green around it. The house is a little bit older looking, as opposed to the more modern structures in the center of the city. So it made sense visually why she was with that group, is because they were closer to the way she was accustomed to living.
No, that's really true. And you have, her interactions, she shows up and she's like, "Hi, I'm going to be," like she'd practice it, her little rote, of, "I'm the resident witch in training." And they're like, "That's nice." And they keep walking. And it's like, well, what did you expect? It's nope. Everyone's busy. Nobody cares. Things are more expensive. It's a city. It's very much, so that's true. Maybe less old versus new and more city versus rural. That was also very strong in the story.
Yeah, the one part of the story that I never really thought clicked was the one with Tombo, where he's building the bike with the propeller on it and he's trying to win her over. It felt like there was a necessary nature to it, where there almost felt like there was this obligation. Well, okay, we have to have a boy kind of fall in love with her, and it didn't really add anything to the story, in my opinion. Am I off base with that, or do you guys agree?
No, I'm with you on that one. I don't think it added anything. I liked the I like that little scene where they're on the bike and it goes crazy and she gets her face way too close to the asphalt. I did like that scene, but
she's a drifter. Okay, just lean in.
It was I even though I like that scene, the build up felt a little forced, and I kept trying to think of ways to get to that scene without all that unnecessary build up. But yeah, I don't know. I don't want to rewrite it, but yeah, well, I'm with you, John.
This originally was a series of short of stories where it wasn't as linear, and it was just little adventures that Kiki was having. So Miyazaki, initially, he wasn't going to be directing this one because he was still doing Totoro. And he was doing a lot of rewriting for it, but he wasn't directing, until he eventually had changed so much that he's like, no, I'm going to direct this one because I've been so involved in it. So he added a lot more to the cohesiveness of the story, but also he put her in more peril, like up the stakes on a lot of the things that she goes through. I think in the original books, it's more like, oh, I went shopping and it was expensive. Just it's not nearly as harrowing. But then it builds towards the climax where we have the dirigible goes. I don't think they ever said why, but it just all of a sudden goes haywire, and poor Tombo's falling, hanging out with that cop car, which is, that's right, it's a strong breeze. That's right, I remember now. It takes it away.
A stiff breeze, yes.
Yeah,
the nemesis Welker, of any dirigible.
Yeah, Frank Welker, the breeze came and blew it away.
Yeah, and the Tombo hanging on the rope very much felt like one of those anime moments where they felt like they had to just put him in peril somehow, and it was like,
who did we put in peril? Well, Tombo, we got that character. Let's just put him in that.
You could have even put him in like the cockpit and have her have to go and rescue him, like have him be alone inside it. And like Tristan likes to say, I don't want to rewrite the movie, but the whole hanging from the rope thing that's where there were certain moments where, just as much as Totoro, if not more, it very much declared itself as, your first question, did I watch it with one of my daughters? Maybe I should have, because those moments were declarations where this is for a younger audience. That's going to be easier to invest in these sort of fantastical moments. And it's a very odd journey to watch all four of these movies, because regress is the wrong word, because the animation for Kiki's Delivery Service, right from the first frames with the clouds going over, the use of layering and color and everything, I was like, wow, this is gorgeous. This is better than
the town,
anything.
All of that.
Yeah. It was amazing.
It felt like a real place.
But story-wise, it feels like we went from something that was for adolescents and above with Nausicaa, and just sort of slowly kept marching younger, which is not a knock, but it's an interesting arc apt. Because, well, I mean, typically when you see an animator come to their work, they sort of move in the reverse way, where they start off a little bit young, and then they decide they want to add some more, adult themes into their work and everything. And it seems very much like Miyazaki went in reverse, which is neither a good or a bad thing, just an interesting one.
No, I would pick up on that. And it has, again, I've never watched these four films in order in a close amount of time. Usually it's pick and choose and whatever strikes your fancy. So yeah, the story definitely gets simpler and simpler. I mean, even from Castle, which was only 2 movies ago, which had a lot going on in comparison to the day-to-day life of a delivery girl. Well, you were talking about the visuals, John. What did you think? We usually save it for last, but we can go on to the music. I love the radio use, and setting the scene. I mean, that opening credit part, and I often will hear when listening to like other Miyazaki music, that theme, that like bum 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 bum. It's a very nice tune, and just it's kind of like seasidey.
Yeah, the music has a good personality that fits the film. I don't think that it's going to be something where I'm going to. I didn't find it, for instance, as memorable as the theme work in Nausicaa, or even some of the stuff in Totoro. Stuck with me a little bit more than this will, which is not to say it's bad. I think what's interesting is that as a whole, the score seems to work more cohesively than Totoro, but the themes are less memorable. There's almost like a trade-off of consistency for, splash or pizzazz or what have you, energy.
What did you think, Tristan, of just the musical aspect and the overall story, or did your, or how was the impression with your daughter? I mean, she's 4, but how did she enjoy it? It's 103 minutes, so it's a little bit of a spell.
It was a little bit of a spell. I feel like Miyazaki has a tendency to go too long, and he indulges himself a little bit too much in between. I feel like there's definitely a lot of moments where it's cut to the chase. Where I know it's a little different, because if you look at his work, so much of it is contemplative, so much of it is soaking in the scenery and getting to know the characters from their observations. And so either you're a fan of that or you're not. And I definitely think I lean towards the not category, where I can appreciate a lot of his artistry and the decisions he makes as a director. They're not really for me. And I thought my kid was going to be bored to tears. I really thought that. I was just like, oh man, if this is like Totoro or Totoro, whatever, if it was going to be as slow as that, then she was going to go off and play with her toys, or she was going to go upstairs or something like that. But she was engaged during the entire time. She was asking questions. She was soaking it in. Like she was asking me stuff that was going on. She was commenting on it and like making action. And like she's only 4,
Right.
So I mean, it's not like she's a
Do you think
connoisseur or anything
the
like that.
geopolitical status of the airship corporation is going to mess up their index fund for the next 5 years with the crash? It's like, no.
How do you feel? How do you think a post 1950 Sweden would really look like if there was no Great War? What do you think?
Asking the right questions there, Tristan.
Yeah. But she was engaged. She really enjoyed it. And just today at dinner, because we watched it last night, today at dinner, she said, we need to watch that witch movie again.
Oh.
And I was like, I had no idea you liked it that much. And then she started talking about the plot, and she was telling my wife all about it. She's like, yeah, she's a good witch. And she didn't take her small broom. She took her large broom. And, she went to a new city, and there was this other girl who was mean to her. She was leaving the city. And, just like stuff like that. And it's
Tristan, you just need to get her on. I don't want to talk to you anymore. I need beat by beat. No,
I would love to. But John, you kind of made me giggle when you talked about Tombo, like how they needed to put him in danger and everything like that. And I agree with you. Like from a plot standpoint, I don't think it really was necessary. But from a 4-year-old standpoint, she was all about it, because
sure,
when Kiki actually, like in that wide shot where Kiki's holding his hand, and it's clear that she grabbed him and they're going slowly to the ground. She jumped up out of her chair and went, yeah.
I wonder, would she be as engaged with the live action remake that came out apparently in 2014 of Kiki's Delivery Service?
I have no knowledge of this.
Because
maybe there's a reason for that, but what?
It is out there. It exists. If you search for Kiki's Delivery Service in IMDb, there's a 2014 live action movie.
Really?
And I said, this. I was like, this has got to be some sort of like weird naming thing. Where,
we're like can't be
it's
the same story.
Can't possibly be. Nope, it's the same story. Obviously, the character is older, and the hijinks are apparently more. I mean, it's
more mature,
2014. Well, there's
more modern.
There's one scene in the trailer for it where she's standing on a cliff top singing, it looks like. So there might be a musical aspect to it. I personally am fascinated enough to try to track down a copy of this, because I gotta know. But that would be really interesting, because I do not see an aspect to this movie. Like, there are certain movies where I could see a more adult live action remake of it. I could sit down with The Black Cauldron and say, okay, I could see a modern adaptation where they take live characters and they make a few tweaks and it's more of a PG or PG-13 movie. Or I could look at, I don't know, pick something from the Aladdin, maybe. Who'd be crazy enough to remake that classic? But if they did,
let's not go down that path, John.
But this is not a movie where I see any aspect that lends itself to that sort of remake. And so I'm just fascinated. Like, Darren, do you see anything in this where you're like, oh yeah, I could see, a producer saying, you know what, this is great, but let's make her like a slightly older teenager and age it up a little bit, and we could really make something sing.
No,
do you see anything in here like that?
No, I think you would lose, like, to make her too angsty and teenagery. I think you lose a lot of the charm of the character. And yeah, culturally for us, we're like 13, you're not leaving home. So I think it's hard for us to get past that hill. But once it's established she's safe and she has kind of like a guardian with Osono and all of that, like I said, I had no knowledge that there was a live action remake. And now, to be true, this is a Japanese film. This wasn't like America was like, you know what we need more of in those cinemas?
That'll come. Oh no,
Kiki the movie.
I am ready. I am ready for a Hollywood.
I'm imagining this poster. It doesn't say Kiki's Delivery Service. It doesn't even say Kiki. It says Kiki the movie.
I
know what it is. People will know. We'll put a bow and a silhouette. And that's it. That's all I need.
I see a a gritty Hollywood remake where the airship crashing at the end kills tons of people, wipes out half the city.
No, we'll just open with that. It'll just pick up right after that in the movie. The airship crashes and thousands die, and then Kiki is so shell-shocked through the rest of her days, and that's what we focus on.
In the tagline of Kiki the movie with the poster of John's idea is "Oh, the humanity again."
Again.
Yes, I love it. I
Take
also
flight
have
for the first time.
but I have to ask, Tristan, did you watch the credits this time?
I did.
Okay, good. I'm glad that you did, because this is sort of the ultimate. This takes Stinger to the new level, because there's a whole other movie in the credits.
There is,
and then there's a stinger. I don't know. I don't know how to feel about this. It's almost as if, because there were so many elements in the credits where I was saying, "Oh, this would have been more interesting to play out in the movie itself. It would have given more." I don't know what the word is that I'm looking for, but there are some of these moments where this would have played better in a coming of age movie with Kiki trying to help her friends. Like even just showing her helping Tombo fly his own little flying machine. It's almost like that would have been.
Which I'm glad they finally do, like, because I've seen stuff like that before with like the bicycle powered, monoplane or something. Because like you look at his prototype and you're like, what, buddy? I don't know what you're trying to make, but I don't think this is gonna work. But
right. But I mean, I'm just saying, like, there are those moments in the credits where I think they would have worked better in the film, and I don't know why you wouldn't take some of those ideas forward and put them in the movie to have it work that way. It was just an odd sort of thing. I get it. I get that, like, Totoro, it's the sense that life continues after these credits go to illustrate that we just came in at a certain point in her life.
Right.
But some of these ideas are so developed. It seems like they just really should have been part of the main story and not left as little vignettes in the credits.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, we do see some interaction with some of the other characters. We have Madame, we have Tombo, but she doesn't really meet that many people in the story. Like there could be a lot more mini stories, as it were. But well, again, just the gritty Kiki remake that we didn't know we didn't need. I don't know. But this film, was fairly successful in the 80s. It was budgeted for around 7 million US and it made 38, which is not bad. For
That's
this.
great.
I mean, I know it's not Batman money, Tristan, so don't compare it that way. But what is?
I don't know why I was.
Yeah, no, I
called out for that one.
Batman made a hefty sum, but a 30 some odd $1 million return on a $7 million film. That's, especially an animated film, that's really good.
Right.
I mean, and it definitely, but to sort of the joke you were making, it really is a sort of funny thing, because we're still, all these many years later after Endgame, still so completely just used to Marvel movies making $1 billion each,
right,
that it's like, oh, how quaint. It made $32 million. It's like $32 million is a lot of money. Yeah. That's a lot of ticket sales. But
I just did straight yen to USD conversion. I didn't do accounting for old versus new money, so I don't. That probably would still be a different impact, but the difference is still the same. But I didn't want to do that much math, so that's the number you're getting. So. Well, again, I think I was kind of also struck on the story, because from as far as I know, like this being written by someone else, even though it was heavily modified by Miyazaki, versus like Totoro, where it feels like it's like him just drawing from his own childhood and like all of this, whereas this is, I don't think he had a childhood being a witch and going off to a new town. So it was interesting seeing like the book adaptation version of his work, as it were, versus like, I mean, Nausicaa, like he wrote, he created that. And Castle, I think, was a popular comic book I don't think he was involved in that regard. But it's interesting the difference between ones that he is heavily creating, not just adapting, versus this one, versus like Totoro. But well, I mean, you're talking about needing everything had a female lead. I mean, we're not going past the 80s, but I mean, the next film, Podorosko, is a man who's been cursed to be the face of a pig, and he flies an airplane. He's the lead.
Well, okay then.
I know you're excited. I'm really sad that that's not what we're going to watch next week, but
we cut it off at the wrong moment.
No.
Wow.
Disappointed beyond measure, and my day is ruined.
Yes, I'm sure you are. All right. Well, let's go through our ratings for Kiki's Delivery Service, this fourth Miyazaki film, as we're only scratching the 90s. It's interesting kind of what you said, John, of like, you remember the movies you saw in 89, like we're moving into the more modern time of like memory, that is. And because I'll look at some of his later films and I'm like, man, 2014, I can't believe that feels like forever ago, and yet like a blip at the same time.
Yes.
But yeah, we'll set in the post non-war past. John, what would you rank this film? I'm interested to see also just it compared to the other three.
Wow. I wasn't thinking in terms of final rankings, but
just the ranking of this one. Yeah.
Yeah. It's tough. I mean,
because we've been sliding down. We did a 4 and a 3.5 and a 3. So are we pulling up a little, or are we leveling off?
I would say that even though it gets a 3, which is the same rating I gave Totoro, I liked it more. I found it more engaging than Totoro. I will probably like it more if I watch it with with my youngest kid. If I watch it with my youngest kid, I'll probably like it more. So it gets a 3. The final ranking would wind up being Nausicaa, Castle in the Sky, Kiki's Delivery Service, and then My Neighbor Totoro. So that's where I end up with the Miyazaki of the 80s.
Wonderful. And Tristan, I mean, we went down to a 2 last week. Can
Kiki? You remind me like what I gave?
Okay.
What?
So Nausicaa was a 2.5. Castle was a 3.5, and Totoro was a 2. So you haven't cracked 4 yet in any. I mean, I'm not saying I don't think we're going there, but
Castle in the Sky was 3.5.
Yeah. I think you gave it an extra point for some reason. I'm trying to remember what it was. You were like,
oh yeah.
You loved the airship or something like
yeah,
your
I think it was the production design. Yeah,
you gave it a whole up 1 number for that. How uncharacteristic of you. So
I think with Kiki's, I think I'm giving it a 3, like John. I think it's I think the story is okay. I think the characters are really nice. I think it's absolutely gorgeous. I love the design. The animation is top notch. It just keeps getting better and better. And but I don't think the story really hit me as much as the Castle one. I don't think it was as interesting. I think it was languished a little bit too much. I feel like this could have been a 90-minute movie easy. I think you could easily cut out 15 minutes and not miss anything. And but it was not anywhere near as delayed or prolonged as Totoro. So yeah, I'd have to go Castle in the Wind, then
Sky.
Castle in the Sky, sorry. Castle in the Sky. Kiki, Nausicaa, Totoro.
All right. Well, with Kiki's Delivery Service, we barely touched on it because only one of us watched with their child as instructed. But no, I think
he's not even biting on it.
I think these are really movies that kids love. And maybe it's the Pixar era where we feel that movies should work on this dual level where they're just as entertaining for adults. Not saying you won't love this movie unless you're a kid, but I was really enjoying getting that insight from your daughter, Tristan, on just, one of those little main beats when she's retelling the blow by blow, like, and then the bad witch, and then it was mean, and then the bigger broom, and because it's like, yeah, it's like, what what does stick and get through, in the overall theme. And yeah, my kids are the same way. Like, they love watching this movie. They'll watch it repeatedly. And, I can't do that because I have a list of movies you guys make me watch for this podcast. So I don't have time to watch Kiki over and over. But no, I'm going to give Kiki a 3 as well. So I'd say, yeah, Nausicaa, Castle, and Kiki are kind of the same for me. And then Totoro not aging as well without watching with a kid. I think any of these probably bump up a whole number if you're watching with your children. I think that really helps in the way it comes through. But I think what this is telling me is that John and I need to watch Nausicaa again together, because it's
on board.
I feel it's really interesting. Again, just this being your guys' first exposure, and just it's been a roller coaster. Like the story, like you said, the story's kind of gone like this, and the animation's gone like this. And I'm gesturing in different directions for those listeners because you can't see that. But
I will say this, that I am at the very least very intrigued enough so that I will continue watching Miyazaki works, because number one, they're accessible to me. And number two, because of the fact that it is like, I've enjoyed the artistry so much. And I did like Nausicaa so much that I'm like, you know what? I'll keep giving it a swing. And I know that there are others down the road that have even more critical acclaim. So it would be really unfair of me to just sort of walk away at this point. I will make the time to continue watching Studio Ghibli movies just so that I can get a better appreciation and understanding of all of the work.
Good. I'm glad to hear that it hasn't this 4 episode slice hasn't soured you from the Miyazaki well, which is good, I think. And yeah, I would definitely recommend Spirited Away and Howl's Moving Castle are great films, and watch them with your kids. It, like I said, it'll add an extra point. Do you feel the same way, Tristan?
Yeah, my daughter said we need to watch this again, and I was like, well, I don't really want to watch that again. Right, like, at least not right away.
We need to watch the Witchy movie again.
But I was like, yeah, the guy who made this has made a lot of other films that are for kids, and so I was like, we can try those if you'd like. And so I think she sounded interested in that. So I was thinking about Spirited Away, because I've always wanted to see it, and I heard that the acting was pretty good. I heard the English dub was pretty good, and and I've never seen it. So yeah, I think that's probably what we'll watch next. So yeah, even though I didn't really dig too terribly much on these movies, I want to keep going just to explore one of the most, proclaimed artists of his genre.
Who apparently, I think I read just the other day, is coming back out of retirement again for one more film. I don't think Miyazaki's never going to retire. He's just going to one day die and be gone. Like, he's going to work until because he just loves it so, or at least that seems to be the reason.
Well, as a shout out to fellow Nerd Party member Mike Schindler, we'll just go ahead and proclaim him the Soderbergh of anime. He declared a retirement, but he's just going to keep making movies.
Yep.
So there you go.
Pretty much. All right. Well, John, what are we going to be talking about next week as we move past Miyazaki of the 80s?
Oh, boy. We move from the childish explorations of coming-of-age stories of the 1980s into the fully angsty, leather-ridden 1990s, where we jump into that full force with 1994's cult classic, The Crow, by Alex Proyas, where we are going to be looking at his 2 movies of the 1990s. And I am so excited. You talk about a movie you want to watch with your kid. There's nothing like the story of an undead Avenger who comes back to avenge his murder and his fiance's murder at the hands of a brutal gang. This is a movie that made such a splash at the time for a number of reasons, none of which I think are a secret to the world. There was a tragedy on set. The film almost didn't get finished. It got rewritten after the tragedy to soften its tone and change its focus. It had a blockbuster soundtrack. The ad campaign shifted at one point to focus on the soundtrack instead of the movie.
Come and listen to the soundtrack.
Yes, that
with your eyes closed. We don't
that.
care. Just put your butt in the seat.
It was an amazing, amazing soundtrack, but it is a movie that had so much style and made such a statement. And I am not alone in this. The Crow changed the way comic book movies moved for a number of years afterward, and it was the declaration of the Batman series went in one direction with Schumacher, and The Crow was the full embrace of going darker forward.
It makes me think of like Spawn and Blade, other stuff like that, which went darker.
Much more along the lines with Blade, because Spawn was not particularly good, so I don't really want to talk.
Well, I'm talking about darkness, not goodness.
Yes, no, absolutely. No, but I am excited. I'm thrilled. I know that the two of you have not seen it. This is a movie I saw in the theater more than once.
I've seen it.
Oh, I thought you said you hadn't seen it. Well, I'm wrong. Darren, you haven't? Have you seen it?
I think I've seen it once, but I do not remember it at all. Like, it has been
I'm that way with Darren. Like, there's so much that I've forgotten. Like, I've seen it, but there's a lot that I've forgotten. Yeah. I went as The Crow one year for Halloween, like to a teenage party.
This is a movie that made
picture as the cover art, Tristan. Picture as the cover art.
Yeah. This movie made one hell of an impression on the target demographic, of which I was one of the members. And so I look forward to revisiting The Crow. And then we will also be visiting Dark City, which is his true masterpiece.
Yeah.
Forget everything else that Alex Proyas has done. These two movies, he should have quit while he was ahead. But I look forward to talking about them. So join us next week when we enter the House of Proyas for The Crow.
Join the revolution. Join the Nerd Party.